Hello Guardians, and welcome to the opening episode of Oh My Lore, entitled Osiris. I'd like to start by introducing myself. You can call me Kiwi. So a bit about me. I've been a long-time avid gamer and consumer of lore from franchises spanning multiple forms of media, open world games to long-standing television series, that sort of thing. And so I've decided here and now to put that love of story to use. I've set up this channel as a means for me, as a fan of all things lore, to share that pent-up fanboyish enthusiasm with the rest of the world. And to be honest, this being my first video is what the content herein will largely involve. Of course I aim to talk about Osiris, but I aim to angle it tonally in my own way if I can. And being able to waffle on about game lore for hours on end is a particular source of fun for me. Not that I should try to make this or any video hours long, I mean forget that nonsense. But you understand. For me, this is a passion and a source of true enjoyment. One I hope will translate well and inspire others the way I have and continue to be inspired. I start, of course, as the title rightly indicates, with Destiny. In this video specifically, the first DLC for Destiny 2, Curse of Osiris. Now I'm sure all of you have been keeping up with the trailers and all of Bungie's promotional streams, and I have to ask, honestly, who isn't excited about this? Osiris is a truly exciting character for so many reasons, with everything we've heard about his exploits, his innate ability, and him as a person. In this video I want to briefly cover the man, the myth, and the guardian, however rich that sounds, and then go through what we can expect to see based on what we've heard and seen of him so far, and what we might expect from the story. So let's begin. Osiris is arguably one of the most infamous and controversial guardians in Destiny lore. He stirred considerable trouble during his time in the Vanguard that ultimately left some with a bitter taste, and others feeling anxious. What's so exciting and noteworthy about this guardian is the legend that surrounds him, the fact that for years we've heard the tales and the stories about him. Embellished? Probably. No hero ever really measures up to the size of the shadow they cast. But come the 5th, we will finally get to meet this character of lore and legend, a true monolithic individual. He came to fame at the Battle of Six Fronts, where he established himself as the Diamond Division's standard of badassery, moving about with such deftness and power so as to be fighting in many places seemingly all at once. The battle called on many Guardians to protect the city that day, and Osiris jumped in alongside the likes of the Iron Lords and the Titans to push the pack back. The Warlock's controversy came at 2 points. First, centering on his appointment to the position of Warlock Vanguard. His appointment was supported by the likes of Saint 14, but contested by the Concordat, a group that viewed Osiris' very existence as a mistake. The second point came during his time at the Tower. He grew to be ambivalent of his duties as the Warlock Vanguard and turned his attention to secrets the Tower considered taboo, such subjects as Thanatonautics, Ahamkara lore, and the like. Nothing which would distract from understanding the Traveller could be considered acceptable. This, and more, therefore, was met with hidden furrowed brow by the speaker, who naturally found his actions to go against the will of the Traveller. Where Osiris was charged with the protection of the citizens of the city, he directed Vanguard and Tower resources elsewhere, for in the lore in Grimoire cards, the effect of Osiris' actions are described, in particular the following. Hunters chose to pursue your visions instead of protecting refugees. Titans assembled teams to chase the legendary Vault of Glass, and Warlocks turned away from the study of the Traveller in favor of your ultimate obsession. When debate became argument, and argument became acrimony, I realized you had already become a cult of personality, attracting Guardians who wanted a clear idea of why they were fighting, what they faced, and how they would ultimately win. This tells us that things had escalated beyond Osiris' personal desire to understand the darkness, but to the point of leaving a very deep impression on those who would eventually come to follow him. That his actions would stir such ardent fervor throughout the Tower is remarkable, and would undoubtedly leave a permanent, if not so subtle, mark on those who would pick up after him. There was more to this, you see, as we know he had a following, the Cult of Osiris, of which our dear vendor Brother Vance is a member. These were Guardians who, much like Osiris, were not content to remaining purely reactionary to the darkness. Osiris sought to understand the nature of the darkness and in so doing be in a much better position to fight it. but what it brought out in the Guardians he inspired can be described as something of a departure from the typical roles they fulfilled, all in favour of taking a more involved role in fighting the darkness where it lies, not simply where it finds us. In other words, Osiris started a movement of Guardians who shared his ideals of being more proactive in this war. This division of ideologies represented a problem for the Speaker, and in his mind I suspect he found this to be threatening to the Tower and the people they were charged with protecting. And in the end, the Speaker and Osiris met one last time behind closed doors, after which Osiris left in exile. Ultimately all this did was untie Osiris's hands. Now that he was no longer bound by his duties to the Tower and the Vanguard, nothing would stop him from venturing out and seeking his truth. And so he disappeared, establishing the lighthouse on Mercury, chasing Zer in the Nine, and meeting with Queen Morosov of the Reef. And when word finally reached the Speaker of his efforts on Mercury, he grew warier still. The Speaker then sent his adoptive son, the legendary Saint 14, to stop him. Having just ended the Kell of the fallen House of Devils, the powerful Titan thought, yeah, screw it, sounds doable. No, but in all seriousness, he was quite concerned, as noted in the Grimoire card named after him, which describes the same. With what we have seen so far in the reveal then trailer, and in the streams, is that Mercury is shaping up to potentially be a very exciting location. The Infinite Forest in itself sounds magnificent. But what of our man Osiris? The reveal trailer we saw played into the controversy that surrounds his very name, seemingly indicating that he might pose a threat to the Tower. But then, that could simply be a case of his reputation still weighing on the Vanguard's collective mind. However, there is some speculation both in-story and out that Osiris' threat comes in the form of his interest in the darkness, this corruptibility potentially rendering Osiris an agent of the darkness, similar to the likes of Drigan Yor or Tolan the Shattered. This fear sounds reasonable, given that we do have real examples of Guardians who have been consumed by their focus. However, it is my view, based on what we have seen in the trailer and his actions throughout, that in hindsight, he still represents the light, if in his own way. Firstly, his interest in understanding the nature of the darkness wasn't based on seeking a superior power or abandoning the light, but instead to finally pull the cover off of what it is they are fighting. To learn how to fight and ultimately destroy the darkness. You don't do this if you're a villain. Maybe a little selfish, but not evil. He fought in the past tooth and nail to defend the last city. He might not have fulfilled his role in the Vanguard with distinction, but let's be honest, it's not as though the Vanguard is the only faction acting in the interests of protecting the city or serving the light. He never killed another Guardian in cold blood. I mean, sure, Saint 14 did disappear en route to Osiris' last known location, but considering the nature of their relationship, if you want to call it that, the sort of tone of the interactions between the two overall was never acrimonious. It was never toxic, to a degree where you might think that Osiris would actually kill him. He never attacked the city, nor did he knowingly lead others into situations where he knew they were not ready. He instead inspired other Guardians to risk for even greater reward in order to prove their prowess, to find those whose strength and ability would best defend against the darkness. Surely then, he could not be a threat to us. One might argue that his time away from the city and the Tower could have soured his disposition, or his exposure to Vextech might have corrupted him. Were that true, I doubt we'd be off to go in search of him, assumedly to help him stave off universal death by Vex, and more obviously we wouldn't have seen the person we saw in the trailer. So moving on. The story right now, as it is presented to us, is that of a doomsday threat to our light, this time in the form of the Vex assembling from past and future with the aim of achieving their ageless goal. In a manner of speaking, they want a Vex-themed universe, no humans allowed. They themselves, it seems, have been laboring towards their ultimate goal not just across the system, but across all time and space, and versions of our reality, most likely. It's interesting because the Vex are able to move through their network immediately across space to anywhere they are needed, as we know. But not only this, their shared minds are seamlessly connected across all of time and space. So the presence of Vex past, present, and future suggests that this time and place now is one in which the Vex are actively investing considerable resources. Should we be worried? Yes. Yes, I think we should be worried. Universal death by Vex does not sound like fun. From what we've been told regarding the Infinite Forest, it is a confusing temporal mix and match, where the player can enter it seeing one version of Mercury, and as the Guardian moves about within the forest, will experience multiple realities with different enemies and different, well, scenes, I guess. Some bad, some worse, and some much, much worse. In that way, I might tentatively describe the Infinite Forest and Mercury as almost like some sort of temporal nexus through which all possible, or relevant possibilities can be observed. Now, in fairness, whether these are literal realities or mere Vex simulations, I'm not really sure. Might be a case of wait and see, but in either case, we can see this somewhat echoed in the grimoire card The Lighthouse, in which a team relaying information on the area says the following. From the surface, the sun is too large and too dim. Perhaps it is the influence of the Vex constructs distorting the image. Perhaps Mercury is in many places at once. We stood for some time staring into the solar fire. I hold myself responsible for the delay. The information goes on to describe the feeling that each member had while they were there, and each one encountered something different. Where one experienced being buried beneath an operating mass, perhaps a large construct, another experienced the sensation of their own actions. An innumerable variation of movements as though all her actions were being studied and anticipated, as Vex are known to do. So in terms of our experience in the forest, this could be very interesting. For those who are often taken by some of Destiny's impressive landscapes and scenery, this sounds like it's going to be quite something. We've been given a glimpse of this through the streams we've been shown, but I know that seeing it through our own screens will be very, very much different. When it comes to thinking about the story, yet again, one expects we may end up having to save Osiris. His situation appeared to him dire as he threw Segura through the Vex portal, and although Segura herself does comment on the fact that he is always taking them places where they get shot at, indicating they've been in difficult situations before, fighting the Vex, one should anticipate that for us to be needed at all, Osiris would ideally be in a difficult, compromised predicament. I know I'm making it sound like it is all about Osiris, and well, it kind of is. It is the curse of Osiris for a reason. And although he is central to the story, it does sound like our primary objective, at least in the first instance, is simply to move on the Vex gate on Mercury. And I get a sneaking sense that Segura will play a significant motivating factor in our role in the story. Whether it be that she, although damaged, makes it to the tower to warn everyone, or we find her on Mercury and she informs us of the true significance of the Vex effort, remains to be seen. But either way, because of this I believe strongly that we'll end up having to rescue Osiris. I only hope that whatever happens, we get to see Osiris in action, the legend come to life in a grand display of power that we as Guardians could only dream of one day possessing. A sight of the man who had been observed in the Battle of Six Fronts completely obliterating the fallen forces assaulting the city, darting from place to place with litheness and swift devastation. I sound like a proper fanboy, but so help me Traveler, I am. Truly, here is a perfect opportunity on Bungie's part to not only bring a legend from their story to the forefront and give us a taste of pure Warlock power, but also to give us some real, previously unknown insight into the cult of Osiris and their story. Who make up their ranks, you know? How many strong? What important moments in history have they participated in that we don't know about yet? Beyond their leader, what claims to fame do they hold? Where are they now? These are just some of the things that we as lore enthusiasts need to sustain ourselves, and that I humbly, if albeit excitedly, hope to see. Anyway, I think that about covers it for now. I hope that this video has at the very least served to boost your excitement about the upcoming DLC. I also hope that if you didn't know much about Osiris coming into this, that it serves as a launching point for your further research into Destiny's incredible lore. If this video offered anything to you that you found useful or entertaining, I will be extremely happy. Believe me. As this is my first video, I've got quite a lot to get used to, so I would appreciate you clicking on the like button if you enjoyed it or found it informative. And if you like the sound of my voice enough to think, screw it, I'll subscribe, that would be pretty fantastic too. So thanks for watching, and be sure to come back as I'll almost certainly have more to talk about come the 5th. And if I might leave you with one Destiny-inspired sign-off, it is this. In all things, be light unrelenting.